नमस्ते युष्माभिः सह पुनर्मेलनेन महान् सन्तोषः अभवत्. So a great pleasure meeting with you again. In the classes so far, we have looked at the plural of the first and second persons in all the declensions. And now we are familiar with, I hope you've done the practice and that you're familiar with being able to apply these forms in your conversation at different levels. So in our next lesson, which is the lecture number 9, we are going to be looking at an introduction of the first person pronoun in the dual form. And in this lesson, we are going to do this introduction to the form of asmat, which represents the first person pronoun, and yushmat, you pronouns. We're going to have an introduction to that as well in the dvivachanam, so dvivachanam or in the dual form. But the focus in this particular lesson is on learning the dvivachanam or the dual form for the first person pronoun. Now, we will also then do a revision of the dhatu rupa, because as we have been seeing that we are looking at some verbs which have a slightly different way of conjugation, and we are going to practice some of that. And following that, we will also do a little practice with the causative form or the niche, and then building of the vocabulary. But here, because the emphasis is really on learning the dual of the pronouns, the first and second person pronouns, the building, we've not focused that much on the building of vocabulary, but new words are being added in every lesson. So please make sure that you're integrating them in your own vocabulary. Okay, so and we've also been looking at some of the sandhi forms. So I've just very briefly introduced you to some of these phonetic combinations that we know as sandhi. That will be part of the literature study that we will be doing through the subhashitas, the Gita shlokas, etc. So let's move on. We'll have a conversation with Piyush, and we will be using the same conversation that we have been doing in the previous lessons with a change of the dual form for the pronouns here. So let's have a look at it and see if you can follow along. Hari Om Piyusha, Pariksha katham abhavat? Esha ka?
नमस्ते आर्ये परीक्षा सम्यक् अभवत् एषा मम सहपाठिनी दोलन अस्ति
उत्तमम् युवां परीक्षायाः परं कुत्र गमिष्यथः
आवां परीक्षायाः परं 7 दिवसीय संस्कृतशिबिरं कर्तुं संस्कृतभारतीं गमिष्यावः
संस्कृतशिबिरं कुत्र भविष्यति
तत् बेङ्गलूरुनगरे भविष्यति
तद् विषये युवां कः उक्तवान्
तत् विषये आवयोः शिक्षकः आवाम् उक्तवान्
युवाभ्यां सह युवयोः पितरौ अपि गमिष्यतः किम्
आम् आवाभ्यां सह आवयोः पितरौ अपि संस्कृतशिबिरं गमिष्यतः
संस्कृतभारती संस्कृतशिबिराय युवाभ्यां कति रूप्यकाणि गृहीतवती
सा संस्था आवाभ्यां 700 रूप्यकाणि केवलं गृहीतवती
शिबिरकाले ते युवाभ्यां सर्वं दास्यन्ति किम्
आम् शिबिरकाले ते आवाभ्यां भोजनं वासं पुस्तकं तथा प्रयोजनीयं सर्वं दास्यन्ति
उत्तमम् युवयोः किं संस्कृतानुरागः अस्ति
आम् अवश्यम् आवयोः संस्कृतानुरागः बहु अस्ति
उत्तमम् धन्यवादः शुभमस्तु
धन्यवादः
So let's analyze the conversation that I've just had with Piyush, where we are focusing on the dual case, the dual forms of the first and second persons. So what happens here? Hari Om Piyusha, Pariksha katham abhavat? Esha ka? So who's this? Namaste Arye, Pariksha samyak abhavat. Esha mama sahapathini. Dolon asti. So I'd just like to mention small diversion here. The word Sahapatini is the feminine form of the word Sahapati. Now, although the word Sahapati ends with an E, a long E, and we are used to identifying words that end with a long E like Nadi, Kupi, Ghati, etc. as feminine words, this particular ending indicates a masculine word. And how do you know that? Because the root form of the word Sahapati is Sahapatin. It is an in ending word, and that in ending word means somebody who possesses that partha. So Sahapati is masculine. The feminine of that, so that's a masculine form. The feminine of that is Sahapati ni. So whichever words you have that are like yogi, yogini, sannyasi, sannyasini, swami, swamini, you know there that the root form of that particular word is an in ending word, and it will take different forms than the words ending with an E in the feminine. So we have Sahapatini, Dolonasti. Next, Yam, we've already looked at those forms, or in the dual case, Yuvam Parikshayah Param Kutra Gamishyatha. So, who Gamishyatha? Yam Gamishyatha. But if it is Yuvam, then it will be Yuvam Parikshayah Param Kutra Gamishyatha. And so what is the case of the Yuvam? It is the first case for the second person in the dual. Okay, so that's the dual there. The dual case. Okay, and therefore you have the Yuvam Parikshayah Param Kutra Gamishya Thaha. Moving on. Vayam, plural, but in the dual case it is Avam. So Yuvam and Avam Parikshayah Param Sapta Divasiya Sanskrita Shibiram Kartum Sanskrita Bharatim Gamishyamaha or Gamishyavaha. So who Gamishyamaha? If you ask who all are the subject of Gamishyamaha? Yes, the answer is Vayam Gamishyamaha. So if the subject is Avam, Yuvam and Avam, which is the first case for the first person in the dual, what happens? It becomes Avam Gamishyavaha. Alright, so Avam Parikshayah Param Sapta Divasiya Sanskrita Shibiram Kartum Sanskrita Bharatim Gamishyavaha. Uttamam. Anantaram, next, Sanskrita Shibiram Kutra Bhavishyati. So, what I'd also like you to try and pay attention is the letter, the writing of the Devanagari script here. Tat Bangalore Nagare Bhavishyati. So, that will happen in Bangalore. Anantaram, next, Tad Vishaye Yushman or Vaha. We've already seen that, the second case. Now, what happens in the dual case? It becomes Yuvam or Vam. Kaha Uktavan. So, Yushman is the second case for the second person plural, and Yuvam is the second case for the second person dual. So, Yuvam Kaha Uktavan, and just one other note here on the term Uktavan. So, Uktavan has K plus the Ukta. Okay, K plus the. So, what we get there is a combination that is written with a half K, or you can also have a Kta like that. So, you have words like Shakti that you might often see written in that manner. Shakti. So, that is a Kta. Alright. So, Kaha Uktavan, answer Asmakam or Naha. So, Asmakam or Naha is the sixth case for the first person in the plural. Asmakam or Naha, or in the dual Avayoho or Nau. So, that's the sixth case for the first person in the dual. Shikshakaha Asman. Asman was with Yushman and Asman. So, that's the second case for the first person in the plural. and the answer, or naha, and for the dual it is avam. So does that ring a bell? Yes. So avam is the same for the first and the second cases in the dual case. So here we have avam is the second case for the first person in the dual. Now you just need to be very careful because the same word is being used and yet the implication, the grammatic implications are different. So you have to be careful and attentive in your mind. Or now uktavan, so those are synonymous there. Now yushma bhihi or yuvabhyam saha. The moment you have saha, you know that it is the third case for the second person plural. Yushma bhihi saha or yuvabhyam saha. So yuvabhyam is the third case for the second person dual. Yuvabhyam saha yushmakam. So yushmakam, we had asmakam, plural of that becoming, not the plural, the second person plural is yushmakam. So that's the sixth case for the second person plural. Yushmakam or vaha, or in the dual yuvayoho or vam. So yuvayoho is the sixth case for the second person dual. Yuvayoho or vam pitarau gamishyatah kim. So do you recognize this au anywhere? Yes, it's the same. So the au generally tends to indicate the dual case. So pitarau, parents, gamishyatah kim. Uttaram, or the answer, asmabhihi saha. We had looked at yushmabhihi. So we have the ring of the English as, asmabhihi. So this is the third case for the first person plural, and for the dual it is ava, yuvabhyam and avabhyam. So avabhyam is the third case for the first person in the dual. Avabhyam saha asmakam. Sixth case for the first person plural. The dual of that is sixth case for the first person dual. So avayoho pitarau. So avayoho we've also seen has the possibility of the now there. So that because I've already mentioned it, I've not repeated it there. So avayoho pitarau api Sanskrita shibiram gamishyatah. Moving on. Sanskrita Bharati Sanskrita Shibiraya Yushmat. Yushmat is from you, which is the fifth case for the second person plural, and for the dual it is Yuvabhyam. So we've already seen it before. Yuvabhyam saha, and now we have Yuvabhyam, from you. So that is the fifth case for the second person in the dual. Kati rupyakani grihitavati. Uttaram sa sanstha. Yushmat becomes asmat. So asmat is the fifth case first person plural. In the dual it is avabhyam. So fifth case for the first person in the dual. Kevalam saptashata rupyakani grihitavati. Moving on. Shibirakale te yushmabhyam or vaha. Yushmabhyam was the fourth case for the second person plural, or vaha, either of them. And for the two of you, good news, it is again yuvabhyam. So what do we get here? Fourth person, second person dual. Yuvabhyam or vam. Sarvam dasyanti kim. Will they give you everything? Uttaram te asmabhyam. So yushmabhyam becomes asmabhyam or naha, and in the dual case it becomes avabhyam or now. So let's write that down. Asmabhyam is the fourth case for the first person plural, and avabhyam is the fourth case for the first person in the dual. Avabhyam vasam bhojanam pustakam tatha prayojaniyam sarvam dasyanti. Finally, yushmasu. Yushmasu was uttamam. You remember that. Seventh case for the second person plural. So yushmasu. In the dual case it happens. What happens? Yuvayoho. So we've already encountered yuvayoho before. You remember it was yuvayoho pitarau. So the sixth case had yuvayoho, and here we find that the seventh case also has yuvayoho. So we have Seventh case for the second person in the dual. Kim Sanskritanuragaha asti? Sanskrit love there. And the answer, avashyam. Asmasu, yushmasu, asmasu. So seventh case for the first person plural, or avayoho, yuvayoho, avayoho. Avayoho, first person in the dual. Bahu Sanskritanuragaha asti. So in the conversation that we just looked at in detail, we saw the different applications and usages of the dual form of the first and second persons, asmat and yushmat. What I'll do is now quickly put it out for you in a table so that you can see what is similar and what is different in that. And then we will move on to the different practices of these forms. So atra we have here vayam becomes avam, asman, avam or now. And here you see that the two forms are the same there, and then we have asmabhihi, avabhyam, asmabhyam also avabhyam or now, asmat also avabhyam, and then asmakam or avayoho, and asmasu also becomes avayoho. And then we have it with the yuyam. So yuyam becomes yuvam, yushman becomes yuvam, yushmabhihi yuvabhyam, yushmabhyam also yuvabhyam, yushmat yuvabhyam, yushmakam or yuvayoho, yushmasu is yuvayoho. So let's initiate the practice for this, and I'll just do the practice in the following one. So here we've seen that for the first and second cases, so aham and mam both become avam. So I'll explain the table to you and you can practice it by yourself. So aham somavare vartam pathami, I study. Now avam somavare vartam pathavaha, the two of us, okay. And vayam somavare vartam, I've also left a gap there because I'd like you to fill it up. So we'll put a dot there to indicate the vartam pathamaha. Uttamam. So you can practice it with the dual case specially. Okay. Similarly, you can do aham mangalavare pustakam pathami or likhami, and then with the dual it can be likhavaha. So avam, likhavaha, etc. So I'd like you to practice that. The verbs that we have is pathami, pathavaha, pathamaha, likhami, likhavaha, likhamaha, shrutavan, past tense, shrutavati, so masculine or feminine for aham, shrutavantau. So let's do a case with that. So avam budhavare samachara patram or vartam. I'll stick to the vartam. So I'll just repeat that. Avam budhavare vartam shrutavantau. So shrutavantau means two masculine, two people in the masculine, and then two ladies if they were sitting and listening to the news. Varta here meaning the news. So avam there, budhavare vartam shrutavatyau, so two people in the feminine. Alright, got it. And then of course with vayam you have the plural there. So I thought we'll also use this opportunity to just go down the weekdays here. So somavare, mangalavare, buddhavare, guruvare or brihaspati that's an alternative. So this really is the same thing there. Okay. Now you can also add to this the second case, and the second case here is mam itopi pathayatu. So pathatu or pathami becomes pathayatu. So teach me or make me read. So I'll read out that whole sentence together for you. Alright. So aham somavare vartam pathami. Aham somavare vartam pathami. Mam itopi pathayatu. So I am studying the news in the morning, but please itopi, some more, make me read it some more. Alright, so pathayatu, and with the plural it will be pathayantu. Great. Now let's do it with avam. So avam somavare vartam patavaha. Avam, or now, itopi pathayatu. Huh? So aham pathami itopi pathayatu. This signifies that there is a subject somewhere here which can either mean bhavan or bhavati. Bhavan or bhavati. Okay, so bhavan pathayatu. So please you teach me, or bhavati pathayatu. Alright, so then it will make sense. And similarly, likhati becomes lekhayatu, make me read. And the final one, shrutavan or shrinoti becomes shravayatu, so make me hear. And then you can practice it with the different forms there. So I will be always, I will request you to always use the pause button at this stage, and then just do a little practice before you proceed, so that you are very familiar with the first, with the dual case for the first and second cases of the first person pronoun. So let's move on, and what we have seen thus far in our practice is the first and second cases where we have the dual form of asmat as avam and avam, or here avam is also the now, and what we see there is that this is a form, the now is often used in the mantra, and that is what I would like to share with you next. So the mantra that we are going to look at as part of this session is the Shanti mantra from the Taittiriya Upanishad. And just because we have also been talking of sandhis, you see the word here Taittiriyopanishad. So we have Taittiriyopanishad. So Taittiriyopanishad is actually, if you break it down sound in its sound components, it is ya plus Taittiriya plus Upanishad. And what is the ya composed of? The ya can further be broken down into the semi-vowel y plus the vowel a plus the u. And one of the rules of sandhi that we will look into more in detail later on is that a and u together become the o. Okay, so how do we know that? You remember when we were looking at the vowels, I had told you that we had the vowels were on our fingers, so we had a, I, u, and when we were trying to go from a to u, the sound in the middle was the o. So o is the natural combination, phonetic combination between a and u. So we have o. So Taittiriya Upanishad becomes Taittiriyopanishad. All right. So that was a small diversion into the sandhi aspect of this language. What we will look at now is the mantra, and this is a very important mantra which is often chanted when any kind of study is begun. So in this case, when the teacher and the student comes together, they chant this verse in order to open up their own receptivity to do the study that will follow. So this mantra says, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Lovely. So here, Saha Na Vavatu, we have another sandhi there. Na Vavatu is a composite of, I will write it for you here. Okay, so Na Vavatu, I'll write one and I will write it for you out here so that you can follow it. So Na Vavatu is a composite of now plus avatu. So now avatu, the au becomes av plus a, so it becomes av. and therefore you see now avatu becomes navavatu. You see that? So navavatu is actually, if you break it down, it is now plus avatu. So who are these two who need to be sahana vavatu? Avatu means to protect. So it says saha, together, now avatu. So protect us both together. Next, sahanau bhunaktu. Bhunaktu means to nourish. So nourish us two together. So who's the two here? The teacher and the group of students. So the group of students as one body and the teacher as the other body. So protect us together, nourish us together. Saha viryam karavavahai. So viryam is courage. So and karavavahai, let us act, let the two bodies or the two parts act with courage. So saha viryam karavavahai. Next, tejasvi navadhitamastu. So tejasvi navadhitam again gets split, and we saw the nava, you remember? So what does the nava break into? Tejasvi now. There's not much place there. I will write it out for you here, okay? So this becomes, so I will do this combination for you here. So this is 2. So I'll write it down for you there. So it's Tejasvi Navadhitam Mastu. Okay, that's the whole thing there. So what do we have here? We have Tejasvi Nava, and you remember this Nava, you recognize that same combination, and therefore what happens? It is Tejasvi now plus Avadhitam. Avadhitam plus Astu also becomes Avadhitam Mastu. There. Okay, so Avadhitam Mastu. So you see, Tejasvi Nava is Tejasvi now, Avadhitam Mastu. Let whatever study has happened by us. Okay. So Tejasvi Nava, Tejas is means fiery, brilliant. So Tejasvi now, our this brilliance, Avadhitam, what we are studying, Astu, may this study of ours be brilliant. Ma vidvishavahai, vidvish comes from the root dvish, or have the idea of two-ness. So two-ness, when the idea of twosome becomes very, very strong, then it becomes a little, there is a lot of animosity. So it says, let there not be this animosity. We will be two people, two bodies, but let us work without any animosity between us, so that whatever we are undertaking happens in the best way possible. So I'd like to, and then of course Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. We say the Shanti 3 times because there are the 3 levels of our being: the physical, Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika, the subtle, and Adhyatmika, the spiritual. So we say the Shanti 3 times in order to bring peace in all these 3 levels of our being, so that by the time we finish the Shanti, we are like an incarnation of peace. The entire being has invoked peace for it. So now we will just chant it. I will chant it, and I would also just like to mention that when you're chanting mantras, then there are certain accents that are there. So here it is, Sahana. So on top, when it shows, it means that the voice goes up. So Sahana vavatu, Sahanau. Sorry, I'll just start. So Sahana vavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Sahaviryam karavavahai. Then Tejasvi navadhitamastu, ma vedvi shavahai. So that is how we indicate the pronunciation, the swara or the different intonations for the mantra. Then Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. That's how it is normally done. Okay. So what I would propose is I will make you recite it after me, and then I would just like to share the larger implication of this mantra that we practice. So, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryang Karavavahai Tejasvinava Dhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Alright, so I'd like to do this once more, and I suggest that you repeat along with me this time. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryang Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So I'd just like to share with you that this particular mantra, in my understanding, is in fact one of the most comprehensive invocations for any collective work, because the first thing it says, protect us. If we come together, the most important thing is to have a safe environment. Otherwise, it's not easy to engage our thought in something that is productive. If constantly are worried that something is going to come upon us, it is not possible to put our full energy into the production of something new. Next, Sahanau Bhunaktu, nourish us. So once our environment is safe in every sense, in terms of the climate, the temperature, the environment itself, then we need to have a mindscape that is positive and enthusiastic. So nourish us together. And what kind of nourishment and what do we do coming together? Sahaviryang Karavavahai. Let us do something together with courage. Because if we are coming together, there is no point coming together to repeat what has already happened. So if we've come together, let us attempt to do something new. And something new requires a certain courage. So let us find in us that courage to act together. Next, Tejasvinavadhitamastu. Now when people come together to do something, you can do something which is degrading or uplifting, dark or full of brilliance. So here the invocation is very clear in the direction of this collective movement. It says, Tejasvinavadhitamastu. Let it be brilliant. Whatever we engage in collectively, let it be brilliant. Tejasvinavadhitamastu. This period of study, collective study, let it be full of light and brilliance, so that it shines forth and it illuminates our environment internally and externally. And finally, Ma Vidvishavahai. Let us not quarrel, let us not have any animosity. It doesn't mean that we cannot have differences, but there should not be the quality of animosity, because if we are coming together on the same boat and we are rowing in different directions, we are not going to get far substantially anywhere. So if we want to get together, get somewhere substantially together, then let us not have any animosity. Let us collectively work towards a common goal. So I think, like I said, this kind of a mantra is not just powerful for us when we are doing a study, but it can be applicable really in any kind of a collective activity. And most importantly, it is like it's saying Sahana Vavatu, protect us together. So whom is it asking to protect us? It's not saying I and you will protect each other. It says protect us together. So there is underlying the entire Indian philosophy, there is this idea that there are greater forces, there is a greater reality that has an understanding of the best that is for us. So let those higher energies protect us, nourish us, give us the courage to do what we knew we are doing, and also to illuminate whatever work we do. And let that ensure that we have no animosity with us. So it is at the same time a humble invocation to the forces for allowing us to be successful in our collective endeavor. So with these words, I would suggest that we just chant it a last time together, and then we will close the session. So let's do it. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I would just like to add that the power of the mantra is that it is creative of experiences. So the mere fact of reciting this mantra puts into motion certain vibratory frequencies around us that facilitate such activities to take place harmoniously. So having said this, let's look at the last quotation on the Upanishads, where Sri Aurobindo, a famous seer, poet and philosopher, he talks about the subject of the Upanishads. So he says that the Upanishads are an orchestral movement of knowledge, each of them one strain in a great choral harmony, the knowledge of Brahman, which is the universality of our existence, and the knowledge of the world, which is the multiplicity of our existence. But the world interpreted not in the terms of its appearances as in science, but in the terms of its reality, is the one grand and general subject of the Upanishads. And this, I think, is something that the study of Sanskrit in many ways will open up pathways for you to engage directly with the Upanishads. And so, Kalyanamastu, may well-being be yours. So having said this, I'd like you to please take on the study. We are beginning to see the sandhis. We will in our next lesson look at the other forms of the asmath in the remaining declensions. So take on the study. Dhanyavadaha. Punar milamaha.